Alright, ladies and gentlemen, you're very welcome along to the reopening of Lally's Bar in Garrafrauns. It's been a famous night, a night of many emotions, and as we see on the big screen in the background, so many wonderful photographs to remind us of the contribution that the Lally family have made to all of us here in Garrafrauns. And now that we're back in the land of TL, while the great man himself may not be here, one man who could certainly tell plenty of TL stories is his great buddy from Midwest Radio, Michael Commons. Give him a big welcome. So there's something very poetic about this. It's the meeting of Galway Bay and Midwest. It's Galway and Mayo coming together across the border. And we were told not to mention borders. But Michael, you simply can't but mention borders, because it seemed to make Tom tick as a human being, the whole Galway Mayo banter and the crack we had here in Garrafrauns.
Yeah, we had some great nights, I have to say, and it's always a privilege to meet Tom here. Even in the house there, the old shop there, we quit sometimes. Anytime I'm passing by, you wouldn't hardly pass through Garrafrauns without stopping in to say hello to Tom Lally. And like, Tom was an institution, there's no doubt about that. He was of this place. This is his place. Anytime I'm going up the N17 there above Milltown, between Milltown and Tuam, yeah, and you see the sign for Garrafrauns no more. It's just Garrafrauns I see on that sign every time, and it reminds you of Tom. And even coming in there late tonight, you'll be still expecting to see him there, and maybe getting an old drive of one gun, one pistol anyway. Tom was like a verbal John Wayne. Like, it wasn't just one shot he had in there, holster, 2, 3, and if it had to be, the whole lot of them were used. And yet, you know what, I think most people here would have got 1 or 2 of them from over the years. And yet, I tell you, no matter how many you got, it was an honour because you came back again for more.
That was the beauty of John Wayne. I mean, you enjoyed getting shot down by the greatest cowboy of them all. But you mentioned Tom, and I mean, there's so many nights we had in here where we had silverware. I can only imagine what it would have been like if Sam Maguire was here for tonight, and it could well have happened as well, and it may well happen again. But it's probably those nights that come back to us, those nights with the Lee McCarthy's and the Sams and the All-Ireland clubs and the Minors and the other 21s. There were many of them.
There were, and in all fairness to him, like, Tom was a proud Galway man. And when we were here other nights, remember meeting Jeff Allen and lots of them, the great John Keenan, who loved coming out here as well. And he knew them all. He was on first names with all of those people. And you know, we rambled in from that side, and I'm sure the lads came up from Mount Delvin, from Roscommon side as well. And whatever it was, you still had to banter with Tom. He was a unique person, and honestly, there'll not be anybody ever like Tom Lally around this part of the country ever again, because they can't. He was just a total one-off. And the talk of all the great places that Tom went to, he went to soccer matches in England, he went to all the Gaelic matches around here, rugby matches, and I think the one that amazed me most of all the places he ever went were the 2 or 3 times he went up to the Scottish Highlands, the Shinty Games. And I said, that was Tom Lally. Do you know who else would do that? Unique.
And how he got to the Highlands in Scotland. I mean, this wasn't Paddy's private jet flying out of Dublin or anything like that. I mean, he set off on his journey, and he could be getting a lift from maybe Garrafrauns as far as Galway. He might get a lift from Galway as far as Athlone. Someone else might bring him to Dublin, or he might head up towards the north and go from there. Like, he had an amazing way of getting around.
Oh yeah, it was like McAlpine Seals and years about somebody took the boat and somebody took the train, and Pecker took the thumb or something and got there all the same. You know, and that was Tom. He'd get there.
Yeah. And that was the beauty of his personality. It wasn't so much that he thumbed a lift as he stopped cars and got a lift. And then had this amazing way of just within seconds making a contact with somebody. You know, who are you, where are you from, and boom, he knew somebody from within 100 yards of that person, no matter where they were in the world.
Well, he had contacts in every county, from Shanagarry down in Cork, or a friend of his down there, program collector to the lead above an hour in South Armagh. He knew people everywhere. I'd say Tom Lally would never be stuck for lodgings, no matter what part of the island he was in. If he was left there for an hour or two, he'd sell somebody.
And he's been to matches, and he often claimed and said it, and he was right. All 32 counties, he'd been to see Galway in hurling and football throughout the national leagues and this, that and the other. You mentioned the programme collection as well, and there are other lads around the country that do something similar, but he was unique in that you mentioned the Glasgow Celtic and Republic of Ireland and matches that were going back historically for 50 years.
Yeah, that's true. You mentioned of Scottish games there. I remember saying one day, Glasgow Celtic it is, you know. he put your right straight away. He didn't want to make a differentiation there. It was just Celtic to him. But sure, look at it. We'll never see anybody like Tom. And I think what you're doing here tonight is magnificent, because it was very amazing that Tom should have died suddenly, only 2 weeks into COVID, and nothing to do with it at all. But I mean, he didn't get at the time the send-off that we'd all have loved to have given Tom Lally, because he was such a unique and amazing character. So tonight, what everybody associated with this it is absolutely special. And I know that Pat McWalter down there, wherever Pat is, wrote an article in the June Herald afterwards. I thought it was an absolutely fabulous tribute. It was in the Colquhoun style, and it was super. And he made one great point that I never forgot. He said, mostly in business they'll always tell you that the old saying is the customer is always right. But in the case of Tom Lally, the customer was mostly wrong.
He certainly didn't conform to natural or normal economics, that's for sure. I see his great Lieutenant Mike Quinn down there as well, who soldiered for so many years behind the bar. Mike deserves a big cheer as well. Absolute legend, and a hero as well. And I think you can appreciate as well, as much as anybody else, that, you know, Michael, the smiles on people's faces tonight, you know, it's about the fact that the history and the heritage is being maintained. We have to thank Mark Quinn for that. The fact that this iconic pub is back open again is an extraordinary thing for this part of the world.
It's lovely, and I see that there's been hardly any, I think everything is the same, as far as I can see. So I
More
don't see
tellies though, Mike.
More There's a few more times.
and maybe a few more logs on the fire as well.
And there's a little bit less toast on the down Derry and Kilkenny photographs. The Galway ones were always well polished. I think that's
Paddy will see humor in that last comment about the fire anyway. What's your Paddy?
and then of course there's always the Galway Mayo banter, which I started the conversation with, and we'll finish with it because let's face it, Tom, despite his linear view on life and on GAA, had just great following in Mayo, and you often told me about those All-Ireland previews where the first man that they bring down to Claremorris would be Tom Lally.
No question about it, because they knew that when they had so many well-known names from County Clares and everything on the stage there a few nights, and yet everybody in the audience was waiting for Tom's comments. He brought the house down, and they didn't care. We didn't care if he insulted us high up in no time.
Which he did.
Which he did, yeah. He told us at one stage that he said, somebody asked him about how, geez, he said, it's insufferable at times, you know.
And yet there was a realism about his advice to Mayo.
Totally. He was very straight and very blunt, and I mean, Tom wouldn't have fitted in with modern political correctness, and that's for sure. He would have hated it, and I say fair dues to him for that. Tom, if you had a different view from Tom, it didn't make any difference. He was going to have his point of view anyway, and nobody was going to tell him to not say this or not say that. But had to be said, take it or like it or stuff it wherever you want.
Absolutely right. And of course we have to remind ourselves of probably one of the most famous YouTube clips to come out of this neck of the woods was when we spoke, me and you, in 2014, less than 12 months after Mayo had hammered Galway by 17 points in Pearse Stadium. We were getting ready for the latest renewal, and Galway people were in trepidation about having to play Mayo in the Connacht Championship. And all Tom did was reference Christy Ring, as Mayo were saying that, oh no, this latest championship game against Galway is going to be tough, it's going to be close. And yet recent history would suggest that, you know, Mayo were going to win by whatever they wanted to win by. And Tom referenced Christy Ring about Tipperary, talking about Cork, the near neighbours, the noisy neighbours. and his words were, "You know you're fucked when Tip feels sorry for you." There was a little bit about that, a bit of a feel about that as well, and yet anybody I tell that story to is watching said, he was so sharp in making that reference, because at the time, Mayo were being as nice as they could to Galway, but let's face it, Galway were at rock bottom, and it's amazing how the tide has turned.
It always does that. And somebody said down in Cork, like, Cork can come over next to end up, they happen for a while, but it is the same down there for years. And it's I'm not going to repeat that one again, but there isn't, and there never will be, that awful much between the two counties. Like, it swings and roundabouts, and that's the way it should be. It's just as well that you have those as well.
For you, your favourite Tom Lally moment, your favourite memory? You've had so many because you've got a chance, Michael, to be in this pub, but you've also got a chance to be at matches with him and buses with him. He's had plenty of comments where perhaps he had to turn and scarper and run, maybe, you know, a parting shot. But there have been so many, but I'm sure you've got one or two instant moments and highlights.
There was, actually, look, there would have been many with Tom, including the nights in the town hall in Claremorris where he would steal the show, like. But I remember one personal one was in 1990 something. We decided we'd go down to a Munster final in Thurles. Now this time it was a Munster football final as it happened. Tipperary were playing with a decent team at the time, and we were hoping they'd probably beat Kerry on the day, but they didn't, but they weren't too far off. But anyway, Tom was with me in the car, and we stopped off in Rossbray on the way back in Francie Loughnan's pub. Now Francie was a great Tipperary hurler, and the pub there, and there's a good few in there, been watching the game obviously on the television. And I'd say we were 3 minutes in until Tom was, it was like Sonny Liston and Cassius Clay. He got stuck into a few Tipperary lads, and he brought up about some incident where some Tipperary fella floored a Galway fella with a hurl now, back in 60 something or whatever time it was, and he gave them Wasky over it. And I felt a bit like one of the disciples at one stage, because I had to actually back away, it was getting so hot, and I said to two of the lads at the bar, I said, I'm actually not from Galway, I'm from Mayo.
You washed your hands of Tom Lally. Ladies and gentlemen, the wonderful Michael Commons. It's just a brilliant night here in Lally's, celebrating Tom's life. Loads more music to come. Thanks a million for everybody for being here. Mr. Mark Quinn to finish off the night with a song of his choosing.
Sitting in the firelight, turning back the years, I can hear my mother singing in the morning as she scrubbed our shining faces and then packed us off to school. All too soon those days were over without warning. So sing me the songs of our gold and silver days, days filled with innocence and light. Not a penny to our name, but we were happy just the same in our gold and silver days. In the parlor on the Friday nights, my father took the floor. I can hear us join together in the chorus, singing just a song at twilight, or the moon behind the hill. Now those voices all are silent, gone before us. So sing me the songs of our gold and silver days, days filled with innocence and light. Not a penny to our name, but we were happy just the same in our gold and silver days. And we'd gather at the daisy fields And Sunday after Mass, we were into Johnny Quigley's and the Royal. Through the years we all were scattered, but the friends were good and true, always there when they were needed, always loyal. So sing me the songs of our gold and silver days, days filled with innocence and light. Not a penny to our name, but we were happy just the same in our gold and silver